From Cabelas, Paul Stone. First, some supporters to thank, and thank you for listening. This episode is supported by CCW Digital, leaders responsible for operations, information technology, contact centers, customer care, service, and support are invited to register for a free CCW Digital membership. Membership includes networking with 100,000 plus qualified industry professionals, quarterly executive research reports, product matchmaking, and more. Go to ccwdigital.com to join the community. This episode is also supported by the CCW Conference and Expo. The event will empower you to test, learn, and try the next big thing in customer experience optimization. Are you interested in mining data across touch points for personalized and predictive data? Are you trying to integrate your systems to get a more complete view of the customer? Are you figuring out what innovations to invest in? Chatbots, virtual assistants, AI, VR, biometrics, to name a few? Go to callcenterweek.com to register. Recorded at the CX Retail Exchange, Paul Stone joins us and discusses how his participating in the Grand Slam of Turkeys helped him get into the mind of the Cabelas consumer. The core customer either loves to hunt, fish, camp, or shoot, and loves the outdoors. There's no daylight between the brand and the customer, for lack of a better phrase. Paul shares the organic growth of the brand and how his job as Chief Retail Officer is to create a great experience for the customer. He says that in today's world, your competition is the ease of shop. In his words, knowledge is power, so the goal is to ensure that the customer knows that the most knowledge about the outdoor experience lives in store at his brand. Welcome to CCW Digital on B2B IQ. I'm your host, Seth Adler. Download episodes on ccwdigital.com or through our app in iTunes, within the iTunes podcast app, in Google Play, or wherever you currently get your podcasts. From Cabelas, Paul Stone. So the Grand Slam of Turkeys. Let's start there. I learned so much in this session just now, you know, because I live in New York City.
Yeah, so. You bet. And I think it's one of those interesting things where there's actually grand slams to different hunting events you would have. But in this case that I just spoke about, there's 4 different turkeys. There's in different parts of the United States, and people that get into the hunt, they become obsessed with it to say, I want to get all 4. I want to get the Grand Slam of turkeys. So, like I'd mentioned, I really had never turkey hunt before, knew of it, had family that did, but just never participated in it. And it was pretty cool, pretty addictive, actually.
And you do these things to get into the mind of the Cabelas consumer, right? To get into the mind of the Cabelas customer. Can you tell us in a sentence, in a paragraph, in a page, you know, who that Cabelas customer is, right?
Truly a person that loves the outdoors. Mm-hmm. And whether it was passed on from a prior generation, or it is today a millennial that just loves to be able to go out and maybe just camp. Mm-hmm. And that's truly the core customer, as well as you actually have different high schools now. Minnesota, the fastest growing sport that they have is the shooting sport. And that's compared to lacrosse, to soccer, to everything else, to where people are actually, young men and women are actually shooting. So as we think about it in terms, it's that core customer that either loves to hunt, fish, camp, or shoot. And they just dig the outdoors.
Yeah. And we're speaking generationally. You also had a video in the presentation which featured kids, you know, having their first.
That's right.
Right? And the delight, you know, is something that becomes immediately apparent. But I say apparent. It seems as though the message is not to the child, right? The message is to the parent, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The kid's not going to pick up on that. It's truly for that parent and for us to say there's a beautiful thing in a connection that you can have that is outdoors, and it's as simple as catching a small little bluegill fish on a Superman rod and reel, that a kid gets so excited about it that they will remember that first for sure. So there's a connectivity that I think somewhat we're missing today, that parents and kids of being able to get out and have those first moments with their children that we were able to really bring out in that Father's Day ad to really congratulate fathers who are doing it.
Speaking of fathers, the Cabela family, why was this a thing that happened,
It's a cool story. I don't think they intended it to happen. Dick did not want to be in the furniture business. He loved the outdoors. He went to a show, found flies at a cheap price, and said, I can put them in the furniture store. That didn't work. No one walking in a furniture store said, oh, here's some flies. I'm going to buy flies at a furniture store. And then they started the process of saying, can we make this or can we ship them out, since I couldn't sell them? And then Mary started collecting the addresses, and they would write them down. 2 years later, they started a catalog business. And I think they had really all intentions of, in that time of day, from 61 to 91, 30 years of just selling out of a catalog, that they were content with that. And in 91, opened the first store as simply a showroom. Nothing to do with, hey, we're a cool retailer with new gadgets. It's just for people that love the brand and to be able to see it versus just looking at it through a picture in a catalog. And then slowly opened stores in some places most people don't know. There's Prairie du Chien, Wisconsin. There's Hamburg, Pennsylvania. There's Kearney, Nebraska. Some of our early stores are places you wouldn't probably recognize through just hearing those, but they knew through their catalog over 30 years, that's where a large percentage of people were hunting and fishing and camping and shooting. So they went after those areas, and it was just very, very successful.
Flash forward, and we've got a chief retail officer, right?
That's right.
Happens to be you.
Yes.
And just take us through what your job is as you see it, right? First off, just quickly, how long you've been in the position and exactly what your kind of mission is.
Yeah, just a couple years now with the organization. And the mission really is for us to put ourselves in a position where ultimately we have a consumer that is making a decision to drive to a Cabelas. And if they're going to come, and in some cases make a 2-hour hike to come in and to load up for a fish or for a camp or for a hunt, that you have to make a great experience. And so really all of our efforts in retail today would be around, how do we give a great experience, and how do we have knowledgeable outfitters in the store to be able to help them with it? We never take it in a sense of you need to sell more product or we're giving you these type of additional things you would need to do. It's truly rounding out that experience for the consumer to where they're going to appreciate that you said, you might need this spray. It's going to be buggy, or you might need this seat that you're going to be needing to set in, that I would know as a beginning user of some of these different hunts and fishes that you would need. But you have an outfitter that knows it, understands it, and is able to really round that process out. So, of course, there's day-to-days around real estate decisions. There's day-to-days around other pieces of the business that you would be looking at. But the core would truly be around, what are we doing to enhance the customer experience?
I'll ask you a question that'll either be tough or really easy to answer. And that is, if we're coming from a place where we open a store which literally just sells itself, we didn't even mean to have a store.
Right.
Why do we feel the need to be so excellent in the retail environment? If we've got this consumer, we don't need to be excellent.
I think in today's world, the ease of shop, you're always going to be looking over the shoulder of the ease of shop. And is it something where, what's going to get you off the couch to come and say, I need to do this? And that gives us an opportunity, once we do get you off the couch and you're in the store, that it's going to be a great experience. I think we could set and take for granted that people are going to flock to the stores, or you can take it and look at it and say, in today's world, knowledge is power. And we put ourselves in a position where anytime anyone is looking at the outdoor space, they are looking at Cabelas to be able to come there, and they're going to have a great experience. And we give our outfitters and we give our leaders in the stores the autonomy to make that experience great for that individual when they shop with us.
So it's a leading edge kind of mindset. It's not, we are not going to be following here.
That's right. You have to be. I think when we look at it as an organization, we clearly know that there's e-commerce channels out there that could easily cherry pick parts of the business that you operate in today, and that we feel that our core consumer that loves the outdoors loves to talk about the outdoors and loves to have someone that can talk their language or to be able to help them. People love people. I think that was said earlier today, and I truly believe that people in this industry love people, and you can put a click button and do different things, but that personal experience, that's hard to duplicate. It really is.
And to that end, you do have digital that's playing
Absolutely.
with retail. Specifically, there was a video that you played of a customer who truly had a phenomenal, I think was his word, customer experience.
Yeah, we're taking that, especially if we're looking and trying to enhance the customer's experiences. How quick can we be to get the feedback, whether it be an opportunity we have or something we're missing or lack of knowledge, or do we have someone that's doing something well? And we've worked with a company in Moment that's given us the opportunity to truly get immediate feedback to our leaders within the store.
So take us through exactly, first off, when you made the decision to do it and how it's working and what it does.
Yeah, it clearly, number one, you can take a survey as you leave, and it gives you the opportunity to go in and then automatically ping and give us the response, and then as in Moment's going to shoot that directly back to the specific store on where it happened and go, here's a response we just had. Could be a critical, it could be a praise, but it's immediate. And it can either be done through text or it can be done through video. So we like the video component where you can actually see the emotion of the customer and they can simply click on it and go give us our feedback. And then that also allows us to, hey, if it's great, can we share that? And can we take it across different channels and be able to take that component of a great experience, and then how do we take that across different channels?
Positive feedback, it seems like you get a lot of it, and that's fantastic. Obviously, spread that. What about critical feedback? When you do receive that, how do you activate, and how do you kind of interact with store level, and how do we solve a problem that comes to us?
Well, I think the beautiful thing about this with our In Moment team is it really doesn't get to me. It clearly is, that is going to go in, unless something would be escalated, which I haven't had it happen, because our store managers have the autonomy to be able to take and make it right. And then we have, whether we have folks in the office that are subject matter experts or specializes in different parts of the business, they can take that component and truly take care of that customer. So when you get an expert calling you from the corporate office saying, hey, we heard that this didn't work right, or we didn't, we had some feedback that you needed help with something, we're here to call you and be able to take care of it. Because it might be something a store's like, hey, I need an expert here that really can talk the lingo of this specialized, and they weren't happy with what we gave from a knowledge. So not only immediately get them a resolution, but as well be able to come back and go, we made this right for the customer quickly.
That intellectual property, you guys lean on that, so much so that when you open up a store, you shoot an arrow through the red ribbon?
Yeah, you have outfitters with every single store we open. They write essays to be able to say why they deserve the opportunity to be able, or they tell their what's in their nature story, which is usually a very compelling story of how they love the outdoors and they know the ritual and they want to be that person. And you're talking a 20 to 30 yard shot up in a tree stand with 5,000 people watching, and there's a small clay target that's on the front of the ribbon. So I am the most nervous guy in the entire crowd, because you don't want to see the individual miss, and it's really, really cool. So you take that whole experience to another level. There are no scissors needed at Cabelas.
It doesn't sound like it. You mentioned what's in your nature. Take us through that, because that's bigger than just those words, right?
Right. There's a component of anyone that enjoys the outdoors is there is a beauty to nature, and that is a line that, as we think about as a company, whether it be someone that's literally waking up in the morning and drinking coffee on a lake and looking at it, that it resonates with that consumer. It doesn't have to be a hunt. It doesn't have to be a fish. It could be, we have shots of folks, flying in and landing in Washington with their plane, and you see the fog as they're coming in there, that's getting ready to go out, and that's truly being part of the outdoors. So I think it symbolizes more. A lot of people can say, hey, that's a tagline, but we truly think of it as individuals that have had that experience at some point in their life, that something is truly in their nature, and it truly resonates with them.
There you go. Went to school in upstate New York. I used to hike a lot. You're making me think about that.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. We have people tell us all the time that that hike or that smell or those pieces that automatically come back to you, that you think about as a kid playing baseball and knowing it was spring, and the smell of the grass that always it hits you. And then when you hit it again and you smell it 40 years later, you're like, this takes me back to that moment. And you were truly playing t-ball in baseball. That's crazy, but there's things like that.
So we're talking about a truly immersive experience, right, in your current position. And, of course, they send you out on the turkey hunt you mentioned, and they send you to all these wacky places to make sure that you get it.
That's right. That's right.
And we'll maybe get a couple other examples a little bit later. But first I want to kind of go back in time. Well, where are you from?
I'm from West Virginia,
Okay.
Small town, Poco, West Virginia.
All right.
We were the Polka Dots. We had the most unique high school name in America. We were the Dots.
Yeah.
So we're from Poco, West Virginia. So small town in West Virginia. That's right.
I see. And the mascot, I would imagine, ferocious.
It was a dot. It was a dot with legs. That's all. You can't make that up.
What were your parents into? What was their line of work?
My dad was construction and dealt with coal, being from West Virginia, barge operator of the back half of his life at a coal plant, and was truly into the outdoors as a kid. Grew up on a farm, understood it. And my younger brother, he was much more into it than me, and enjoyed being hunting and enjoyed being in the outdoors more than what I did. I would always go hunting and I would fall asleep on the side of a tree. I was that guy, and they had left me, and I'm in the middle of the woods. And I'm like, this isn't fun. There's nothing fun about it that I'm asleep on a tree. So I just never really adapted to it. And I was working at a young age, and with school and everything, it never connected with me. But loved the outdoors through sports and different things. But the hunt component, my brother, he gravitated towards much more than what I did.
What eventually along the way kind of grabbed you, whether it be in school or otherwise, where you kind of found a path?
I think people that are true outdoor folks, they get it. There's something about them that understands it, and there's a simplicity and a beauty to the outdoors that when you're around people that truly get it or understand that, hey, this is the good life versus climbing a corporate ladder and working 100 hours a week. This is truly a way to just to reset. You don't have cell service. You can't look and see who's pinging you. There's none of that you're truly out in the nature. There's a beauty to it.
But it sounds like you did take that corporate path, right?
Oh, for sure.
So
for sure.
Where'd you go to school?
West Virginia State University.
All right. The Volunteers? No.
No, it's the Yellow Jackets.
The Yellow Jackets.
The Yellow Jackets,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Small school.
And what was your major?
Business.
Okay. And you got a job at?
I got a job at Sam's Club pushing carts. And at that time, I was pretty unique. It wasn't we were a smaller company that Sam's actually bought. So at that point in 1987, there wasn't even a Walmart in the state of West Virginia. And then Mr. Walton purchased 13 or 14 Super Saver wholesale clubs that were down the East Coast, and then we instantly become a part of the Walmart family. And there wasn't even a Walmart in the state, but we were the only brand of Walmart there, and then grew with the organization. They were fantastic.
And you made your way up through the ladder, but I wonder, When did you realize that you were working for Sam Walton?
Pretty cool story. I was in high school, and my store manager said, Mr. and Mrs. Walton is coming through West Virginia and going to Maine, but had not been to our store. And Jim Miller's his name. He's in Louisiana. He was my store manager, and there was 3 kids that we pushed carts in high school, and he made sure that we got out of school and that we were there when Mr. and Mrs. Walton came to the store. And for everything he had on his plate and going on and thinking through his head, and you got Sam flying in and Helen flying into Charleston, West Virginia, and to think, I want to get these kids here to be able to experience that. That was really the thing that set me aside, that, Sam brought us in, got us bread off the shelf and bologna, and in typical Sam Walton fashion, brought us all in the break room and was down on one knee. What can we do better? What type of opportunities do we have? Are the managers here taking care of you? And it was like, it was almost spiritual, where you looked at it and said, this is a guy. And at that point, I'm a kid. I didn't know what Sam's worth was, or even the status of Walmart, someday passing Kmart and then moving on. It was just a normal guy sitting there and talking to you with Helen in a break room. And that sort of that made me say, this is really good.
That stuck with you, obviously. And is that not exactly why the success happened? Just a normal guy on a knee in a break room listening to a bunch of kids.
Oh, for sure. I mean, he was, and I met him a couple more times at meetings, or he did a store tour with me in York, Pennsylvania once, and he was so humble, would come pick up the phone, would page all the customers, say, Sam Walton, want to make sure we're taking care of you. I'm up at the front. If you have any issues, please let me know. Would love to meet you. Walk through, was shaking every person's hand, whether you're pushing carts, whether you're pushing a broom. He was just a very special person that you could feel that the sincerity and the genuine person in him, that it's hard to even explain just how great of a guy he was.
Understood,
yeah.
Or understood that I don't understand.
Right,
I guess,
right, sure.
When he would invite every single person in the store to come up, was he besieged by humanity, or?
No, I think there was just this sense of that's the way Sam was, and it really didn't come to that. There'd be some people that wouldn't even know who it was, what they were saying, and it's just a course of business. And then we were in the parking lot with a Walmart, so then he'd go to Walmart, do the same thing, or it might have been vice versa. But he always wanted feedback. He was great at trying to find what can we do better, and whether it's listening to his associates or whether it was listening to his customers, he had that type of desire and drive to be able to be better.
That was one and the same. Associates, customers, same deal.
Same deal.
How different was your conversation with him as a kid pushing carts? And it sounds like you were in more of a managerial level when you did the walkthrough with him.
Sure.
How different was that conversation? Do you remember?
Oh, what sells, what's selling, what's not selling, what's your numbers, what you do last week, how's payroll? I mean, it was a rapid fire of true business acumen questions that he would have for you. And the minute it clicks, he knows and wants to know, are you a student of the business? Are you really doing what you need to do? And I think there was that component, but he wanted to know, are you taking care of the people?
Right.
He really wanted to know, are you the type of leader that's listening and taking care of the people?
So in other words, probably a little bit more advanced in age,
correct,
right? So I would imagine there's no way that he could know store numbers so that when he's asking you, he's comparing it to what he thinks. It's more of an interview with you, the kid, right?
That's right. And at that point, I was young, even as a manager, very young with the company, and he knew it by name. And I'd heard people say, no, I work at store, 42, and he'd be like, where's that?
Sure.
That's Gettysburg, or what have you. So there was that opportunity, but he truly wanted to know what the experience was. It was less about store number and more of that interaction with you.
Right. Are you quick enough? Are you keeping up with me?
That's it. It was rapid fire.
That's
rapid
fantastic.
fire. Yeah.
How high did we get, as far as Paul Stone at Walmart?
It was actually, I rose through the ranks and got up to a senior vice president running the Western division of Sam's Club, and I was 180 stores, and went from Minnesota west. You don't have as many. The density of clubs are not as great as a Walmart, so you had a larger geography. You went from Minnesota down to Oklahoma, all the way to Alaska, Hawaii, and I had that third of the country.
Some of the skills that you had learned at store level, of course, you keep. What were the additional skills that you kind of had to lean on managing such a big territory?
It comes down to people. I mean, whether you're in a position where you have 3 to 4 vice presidents rolling up to you, or whether you're in a position where you're running a store and have 5 or 6 assistant managers running up to you, do you have the best leaders that are going to help you run your organization? And I truly think that you get to a point where in certain situations, you can cover up a lot of your own mistakes, or you can do other people's or bleed over into their responsibility. And then as you start moving up through an organization, it clearly comes down to have people that represent the company and the brand very well, and that are going to have the highest standards. And I always say that, looking at it, you're never going to be put in a bad position if you have a higher standard than the person that you're reporting up to. So if you clearly can have individuals that are leading your organization that have a higher standard than you do, you're never going to be disappointed. It's when you ever put yourself in a position where you have a higher standard, you're always going to be disappointed. So that's the magic. And I think that the secret sauce is having people that have a higher expectation and standard than you do as a leader. That's
fantastic. That is great advice. And it sounds like, no matter how big the geography, really what it is that handful of people that reports to me, just knowing what's going on there, and I'm good type of thing.
That's right. And Sam used to say it, you're just adding zeros to your responsibility from a volume standpoint. That if you're truly leading, the only thing that's changing is, yes, your geography, or yes, the amount of zeros on the end of what your P&L and what that looks like. But the reality is, if you're leading the way you need to lead through people, that you're going to learn and be able to continue to grow within an organization. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I got 3 final questions.
Okay.
I'll tell you what they are. I'll ask you them in order.
Okay.
What has most surprised you at work? What has most surprised you in life? And then on the soundtrack of Paul Stone's life, 1 track, 1 song that's got to be on there. First things first, though. What has most surprised you at work along the way here?
That's a great question. I think no matter where you go, and I've had the opportunity to live all over the United States. I think my wife and I are in our 9th or 10th home, 7 or 8 different states that we've lived in, that the core, no one wakes up at the end of the day and says, I want to do a bad job.
Right.
Everyone wants to wake up and do well, or to be appreciated for what they do. And, I used to have people early on say, oh, that's going to be tough. You're in LA, or you're in Baltimore, or Atlanta. These are tough metro markets. And the reality is that there's good people everywhere that want to do great things. And I never was one to say, hey, I can't go to a complex market or a large metro market, and then you're not going to be able to have good people to do great things for you. And I think that's the one thing that if I'd have been that as a 17-year-old or an 18-year-old, I would have been scared of, am I still going to have the same West Virginia work ethic that I had in West Virginia, that I grew up, that I understood, and be able to see that in Canada, or see it in Alaska, Hawaii, or in metro cities. So there's great people everywhere.
Understood. But when you go into a market that everyone before you understood as being difficult, how do you unpack that group of people to find the person that you're looking for? In other words, whether the person's already in the position that you need him to be, or her, or that you're finding that. But how do you, get to that point? It's easy to say, well, no one wants to do a bad job. Okay, fine.
Sure.
But they've also been doing it this way
Sure.
for X number of years, whatever.
And I think it goes back to that earlier point where we look at it and go, having the people that have a higher expectation of you, and whether you're sourcing them externally to bring in to lead for you within that group, or you see that opportunity that maybe someone's not been given that rise to the occasion, that there's usually a balance and mix to that. You can't come into an area and say, hey, it's going to be all external folks that are going to come in and we're going to look at the organization differently. You're going to look at it in the sense of there are folks internally that's been given the same opportunity that I was given to grow internally, that you want to have that. But it's truly getting back to what's that standard and expectation, and ensuring that you've got individuals that are leading that have that high expectation. And it doesn't matter where you're at. There are people that do have that high expectation. It's a matter of, do you have a high enough expectation to bring those individuals on?
There you go.
Yeah.
It's all about the people.
That's right.
What's most surprised you in life?
How fast it goes.
Yeah.
I've got 2 girls in college now. One
You
in,
do?
I do. So one
You look
in,
younger than that.
No, I have one in pharmacy school at Kansas, and I have a daughter in pre-law in Iowa. And you look back and you go, what just happened? How did this happen? Or the calls that you get today, and compared to, a bicycle wreck, now you're dealing with, a sorority issue, whatever it might be that you're dealing with. You go, how did it go from this to that? And I think it goes back to the Cabelas piece, that before you know it, 28 years are gone in a career, and you look back and you say, hey, did you enjoy everything? Did you take advantage of what you needed to take advantage of to make sure that you're a great dad, a great husband? And I think, if I was to give someone advice, it'd be, make sure that you're taking the time, that the ladder's not getting in the way of what's truly there for the family.
Corporate ladder.
That's right, corporate ladder, yeah.
On the soundtrack of your life, Paul, one track, one song that's got to be on there.
With or Without You.
You too.
You too.
Yeah.
That would be either that or Living on a Prayer. I'm an 80s kid.
Yes, you are.
So either one of those, I think, because I've always felt like I was somewhat living on a prayer as you continue to grow. And then I think the With or Without You, that's always had a lot of meaning to me. The 2 songs that, that it's, you're going to have to go. But I both of those come to mind.
Those will do. Generation X, Paul. Here's to Generation X.
Cheers to Generation X. You bet.
Paul Stone, appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
And there you have Paul Stone, a man that seems to be living the brand. Also seems to be a descendant of sorts of Sam Walton. It seems like those early interactions really did affect him in a real way. So very much appreciate Paul's time. Very much appreciate your time. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned.